Yeah, and I'm probably going to be the sixth one with a six different thing. I kind of changed my thought process after watching the game again on tape. And right now it looks to me like the opposing defense doesn't believe in Sam Bradford. They are daring him to throw the football. And to me, it all starts with that. And I understand the offensive line is the narrative, and I understand obviously the defense, and you mentioned the money they outlaid to Byron Maxwell, but I thought they played well enough to win for the most part yesterday. It starts on the offense, and I think first and foremost, it is scheme and the quarterback, and it's all, the perfect storm starts right there.
So let's start with the quarterback, because I would say in any game, win or loss, the quarterback is always the first guy. What role did he have in the win? What role did he have in the loss? How much was pinned on Sam Bradford for yesterday's performance?
Well, what's happening is the defense is daring him to throw the football, and it's a combination. It's not just Sam Bradford. He's terribly inaccurate, and that's what he's supposed to be, the strength of his game. So that's a disappointment. I don't think that continues. I think it was just an off night. The fact of the matter is the receivers are getting no separation, and he's having to fit the football into tight windows. We saw him do that in Green Bay in the exhibition season. It's a lot. The live bullets are firing in everybody's game plan, and I think you're seeing that. And the second part in relation to the running game is that nobody rightfully on this planet believes Sam Bradford's going to take the football and hold on to it in some of these zone read looks. So everybody is selling out on the running back, and that's pretty evident.
It's, and I said this before, I've been on the Jackson thing for 2 years now. They have never replaced him. If you don't like Jackson, fine, but they have not. The wide receivers on this team can't get open, John, and as you said, they cannot stretch the field. So they're saying if you want to go down the field, fine. You can't run the ball. Bradford's completing 66% of his passes, which is unbelievable. He would have the highest completion percentage in the history of the franchise.
Well, yeah, but they're all under 10 yards.
Absolutely. So they're saying go underneath and you could do all you want under there. So my question really is, if that's the case with Bradford, you can't run the ball because your guard play is so poor right now. You don't have a receiver to stretch the field. Can we really put that much blame on him?
Well, I think we can, because one of the issues is I don't think he's comfortable. I don't think he's 100% healthy. He's not confident back there. I don't think he trusts his legs, and rightfully so after what he's been through. So I think the fulcrum of the issues start there. When you talk about the guard play, again, I know it's not the popular narrative, but I don't think they've been as bad as everyone thinks they've been, with the exception of Alan Barber in Atlanta. He was bad. I thought he was average yesterday. I thought Gardner continues to be average. Now, that's not great. That's not what you aspire to. But this situation that, this whole narrative that this is the worst pair of guards in the history of professional football, sorry, I'm not buying that. We saw Andrew Gardner play last year. He was fine. We saw Alan Barber play in the past. He was fine. Do we just assume these guys have fallen off the table? I think it starts with scheme. They're still running the same offset look out of the shotgun, which enables the opposing defense to penetrate, and you have I formation backs by and large. It's a square peg in a round hole. So to me, you look at the coach first, then you look at the quarterback, then you look at the wide receivers, and then you get to the offensive line.
And it wasn't supposed to be, right? This was supposed to be, Murray, he was a perfect fit for this offense. One cut and straight ahead. Why is that not working?
Well, he is a perfect fit if you want a north-south runner, but that's always been what Chip Kelly says, yet he continues to use that offset look that I talk about. And what that does is it has the running back from step one going east-west. That's something LaShawn McCoy excelled at. So if you didn't want LaShawn McCoy, I'll take you at your word. If you didn't want that type of runner, why aren't you changing your philosophy to to help a traditional I-back who's most comfortable 7 yards behind the quarterback and reading the blocking for a more traditional pro set offense. But obviously that's not what Chip Kelly does, so you have to look at the general manager and say, why are you trying to fit this guy into what LaShawn McCoy did so well?
John McMullen's with us here at 97.3 ESPN. All right, John, Barrett Brooks on earlier, he said, look, the guards are struggling, there's no question, and a lot of it he attributes to when you put in a new offensive line, the continuity's just not there. So that he believes that area will get better eventually. If they play better and more consistent, can this thing turn around? Because what you saw yesterday, it doesn't look like a team that can turn anything around. If you get better play up front, will that, in essence, change everything, or are they just not as talented as maybe people thought?
Well, I don't know how getting better up front is going to help the receivers get open, for an example. I don't know how getting better up front is going to help a flawed offensive philosophy when you have a running back that's more comfortable being, like an Adrian Peterson, and just picking and choosing the holes. So can it help? Obviously, if guys play better, you have a better chance of playing well. But if everyone thinks that's the only issue, I don't agree with that. I always point, and I know a lot of people don't agree with this site, but if you look at, Pro Football Focus today, there were 3 Eagles offensive players who graded out above a 0.0, which means they were better than average. They were Andrew Gardner, Alan Barber, and Lane Johnson. That was the only 3, and it was 3 of the offensive linemen.
Interesting stuff there, because obviously they have their issues all day up front. Now, it's funny because Kelsey, too, you look at him, and a lot of people just take for granted that he's one of the better guys. Peters as well, Lane Johnson, those 3 particular guys. Everyone seems to zone in on the guards. But what about the 3 other guys, Kelsey and the 2 tackles?
Well, Lane's been the best offensive lineman. There's no question about that. Kelsey has struggled. Jason Peters has struggled for him. He's no longer playing at an all-pro level. And, again, we're just 2 weeks in, so maybe we can turn that around. He can turn it around. Same thing with Kelsey. I mean, so much of their running game is designed on those guys pulling, and that's what Kelsey does well. But you saw the Cowboys yesterday. If you notice, when Kelsey pulls, they're watching him. They're using him as their defensive philosophy and immediately cutting underneath him to get inside the backfield. It's this is a copycat league, but it takes a long time for defenses and opposing coaching staffs to get the copying down. And maybe some people have just figured out what Chip Kelly is trying to do. They've adjusted, and he's not adjusting.
Yeah, and a lot of people would ask the question, because Chip Kelly, they asked him today, John, do you think Dallas knew what you were doing? And he was real short, no. And he basically followed that up, though, with, well, we've been running the same couple of plays. I mean, there's nothing different that we're doing. Do you feel that other teams are starting to figure out what he's doing?
I've been preaching that for years. People, and they get angry and they get really upset about it. But what Chip does is really simple stuff. And he runs, basically the same plays week in and week out. From the running game, it's zone running inside or outside. That's it. You're basically talking about 2 or 3 different plays. So on that part of it, I agree with him. Nothing's different. Nothing's changed. The opposing defenses have always known what he's doing. What has changed is now they don't believe in the quarterback. They don't believe the wide receivers can hurt them. So they're leaving the corners on an island, and they're saying, okay, run the football. We're just going to, run blitz behind Kelsey as he pulls, and we're going to create havoc in your backfield, and that's what's happened. Until a Jordan Matthews can be consistent catching the football, until a Nelson Aguilar could be turned into an NFL receiver, and I don't see that at all from Riley Cooper or Josh Huff. They're not going to be contributors. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, no. Yeah, go ahead.
This is a team that lacks depth at the wide receiver position, and we've been talking about that since training camp, Mike, and it has come to fruition. There is an issue outside the numbers for this football team.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think they have talent out there. I just don't think that you're depending on a lot of young guys to step up and be your main guy. It's right. Jordan Matthews is the third guy last year as a rookie. He handles it. Now you're asking him to be number one with basically Aguilar, the next most talented guy, and he's not ready to handle that. They have nothing else. I mean, they have nobody that can stretch the field, and they have nobody that I guess Bradford trusts at this point to take a shot with.
No, and you see it. I mean, guys are jumping routes. On the other hand, if you look at Byron Maxwell getting beat by Terrence Williams late, that's a single look. That's a guy on an island outside. And you see what Julio Jones was able to do with that. You see what Terrence Williams was able to do with that. The Eagles don't have a receiver who can do that. So what's happening is that the opposing defenses feel very comfortable leaving their cornerbacks out there saying just hold down this side of the field, and that enables you to just, as we said, create havoc in the running game. And by the way, if you look at the opponent this week, it's the New York Jets, who have a lot of issues, but Darrelle Revis is one of their cornerbacks, and for the life of me, I can't picture any way Jordan Matthews, Nelson Aguilar, pick your name, that any of them could get any separation at all against a corner like Darrelle Revis.
Not to mention they're pretty good up front too. I mean, this is a team that is very, very good defensively. I don't know that this is the best opponent for you while you're struggling on the offensive side of the ball. Let's flip to the defense. You mentioned Maxwell. I was not the biggest fan of them signing him. I just, I didn't. $63 million is a lot of money to give a guy to play the way that he's played so far. Is it him, or is this Billy Davis's scheme that's making him look as inept as he is?
Well, I think part of it is the scheme. I mean, they are heavy on single high safeties, and you have to understand you have to switch things up. If a Julio Jones is out there, you probably want to give somebody some help on occasion. So that's where I kind of point at Bill Davis. But if you look at just this team in general, and you look at this defense, it was good enough to win yesterday. That's the bottom line. Whether or not, people look at Bill Davis and want to blame it all on him, understand that defense was on the football field for 41 minutes. So if you're out there, and by the way, Byron Maxwell mentioned that. He said, we were out there. We were tired. Part of it was a technique problem. Kerry Williams mentioned this last year and got killed for it.
Yep.
But clearly it's a theme with this organization, with this defense.
Well, and look, I was right before you came in, you paid Maxwell $63 million. If you took Maxwell off the field yesterday and replaced him with Kerry Williams, is the result any different?
I don't think so. But I think people vilified Kerry Williams. In certain reasons, he did it himself, with the sconces talk. And he is what he is. He won a Super Bowl. So Kerry Williams has already proven that he's good enough to win with at a high level. He's already proven that. Is Byron Maxwell somewhat of an upgrade? I think so. Is it that great that you want to spend $63 million on that kind of upgrade? Probably not. But that's what happens in free agency. We've talked about this before. I don't blame them as much for that, simply because that's what free agency is. If players get there, they're going to get overpaid, and the Eagles felt the need to get a cornerback, and they had to overpay to get it.
Yeah, it's amazing. But you just think that if you spent $63 million on one guy, and you decided, this guy's similar to the guy. And look, like I said, I think Maxwell's better than Williams. Sure, he's probably more talented. Is he going to be that big of an upgrade? Not $63 million worth. You think about some of the moves they made and where they're deficient. If they could have reappropriated some of that money, $51 million on running backs, and they got nobody up front right now that open up the holes for him. You start to question, I guess, more Chip the GM or Chip the coach.
Well, that's the concern, and I wrote about that all the way back when Chip Kelly, undertook this power struggle with Howie Roseman. I thought it was a mistake at the time. I still think it's a mistake, and the reason why is you lose your plausible deniability. Nobody can point at, for instance, the Marcus Smith pick and say, oh, well, that's Howie's fault. Don't blame that on the head coach. now everybody knows Chip's in charge. Chip, the buck stops there. This is his team. This is his players. This is his plan. And that's an issue because when you're 0-2 and these high expectations were out there, well, all of a sudden people are going to start taking shots, and you've kind of seen that, and it's going to continue until they turn it around. I think it was a very, very big mistake for Chip Kelly. If he wanted to go the power struggle route, do it, but do it behind the scenes. Go to Jeffrey Lurie and say, Howie Roseman is a figurehead. Put anybody you want in there. Just understand I'm in charge of personnel. And at least you have that buffer between you and the public and the media.
Obviously, moving forward here, they got, he said he's got confidence in Sam. What would it take, in your opinion, for him to make a move at quarterback?
I think it's going to take a lot. I really do. He's tied to Sam Bradford. This is his decision. He gave up not only a starting quarterback in the NFL, and you can debate how effective Nick Foles is, but he also gave up a second-round pick. So to pull the plug on that after 2 games, I don't think it's feasible. And I think on the other side of that, everybody knows what Mark Sanchez is and realizes, well, he's a pretty good backup. He's not the answer as a starting quarterback.
Eagles did make a move today. Thad Lewis is in. Stephen Morris is out. John, what do you know about Kiko Alonso and Michael Kendricks? I know that they haven't given anything there, but did you get a chance to see Kiko yesterday and Kendricks and get a gut feeling on whether they'll be available?
Yeah, the whispers I'm hearing are not good with Kiko Alonso. So, whether it turns out to be a season-ending one, there's a lot of concern in that building. And why they're holding off for so long, I really can't answer that. Kendricks obviously is not nearly as serious. And whether it's a couple-week injury or something like that, that's a possibility. But I don't think there's going to be good news coming down the pike when it comes to Kiko Alonso.
All right, we'll see. Jordan Hicks did play pretty well in replacing those 2 guys. So, the depth at inside linebacker, they needed it, and it showed up yesterday. Marcus Smith not on the field at the outside linebacker spot. Kenyon Barner was active yesterday, so Smith couldn't get on the field because of that. I would assume he'll probably be active this week because of all the other problems.
Well, you would think, but never assume. I mean, it's 18 games now with Marcus Smith. I think he hasn't dressed for 10 of them. So obviously we joked about it a couple weeks ago when he got the nickname from Chip Kelly and he was Smitty again. Obviously it didn't work. He wasn't able to get on the field. At some point, I think they need to bite the bullet and see what they have. He does have athleticism. He does have length. It's a position where they lack depth. So at some point, I just say, why not give it a try and see if he's improved? But clearly the coaching staff is not thrilled with his work ethic, and he's in the doghouse.
And no Rowe yesterday either. Did not appear in any defensive plays. He did play some special teams, I think 13 plays there. John and I will go over the NFC East and a lot more tomorrow live at the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City. I'm sure we will have plenty more to talk about inside that division, which is completely up for grabs now. John, I'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, looking forward to it. Thanks, Mike.